Welcome back to another episode at Consciously Evolving Enterprises. Of late, me and my dad have been talking about stupid deaths and just the amount that happen out, not only in our community, but also locally as well, and Australia wide. Not only that, but the stories you hear nationally as well. And me and dad actually started reminiscing on the stupid deaths that we actually had in our own lives, the deaths that we've been affected by. But we reflect back on now and we go, holy shit, wasn't that a stupid death? Like, really, what a way to go. If any way to go, isn't that a story to tell somebody else to warn them off doing that same action, or think before you do, or, those things that you go, oh my God, if you only took a second to put the brakes on and think about what you're actually doing. Right? Yeah, yeah, right. Don't be a statistic. I like that. So the first one I want to bring up in conversation is quite a sensitive one actually because it is my godfather's son. Now, my godfather's son Ricky decided it would be a good idea to jump a barbed wire fence that was electrified to get a reel, like a reel of copper wire. It's worth about $10,000. This reel, imagine an industrial reel of copper wire, thick wire. He's seen it through the fence and decided anyway it'd be a good idea. His mother was the driver of the vehicle that drove him to the location, dropped him off for him to jump over the fence. And on her return of going to pick up her son, hopefully with this a ton of copper. They're going to fit it in the back of a little hatchback car, by the way. Anyways, instead of coming across him, wheeling this copper wire out the fence, he was actually hanging over the fence, being electrified still by the barbed wire fence that he got caught up on and electrified on. He'd been electrified that bad that he had a cardiac arrest. Not only that, he'd been there since they started this robbery, break and enter slash whatever you want to call it. Yeah. And it had been approximately 3 hours that he'd been there doing, hanging there from that, and mum presuming that he was actually getting the reel of copper. So unfortunately, another stupid death where young Ricky did hang from that barbed wire, electrified from a stupid act trying to get barbed wire when the young guy had a family at home and a job that he was attending and thought, I don't know, a good bonus for Christmas, or it ended up being another stupid death. So that's just one to tick off the list, ladies and gentlemen. The next one I want to talk about is Hung by Romance. Yeah, this is my good friend Phil. Never had the guy ever talked about suicide. He'd never mentioned anything of it, nor would he snicker or smile. The guy was too smug to even be the kind of person that you'd think would take his own life. But, eventually it did end up happening when he was fighting with his missus and had a half a bottle of bourbon. Yeah, sculled some honey whiskey bourbon, got through half a bottle, and then for some godforsaken reason, I don't know why, he thought it would be a good idea to grab the rope, tie it around his neck, and raise himself 6 inches off the ground and take a step off the bottom ladder. Just enough to your toes to touch, And the guy's a tall guy; he could stand and touch the roof. It was only an inch, and I actually asked his wife at the time, did he get caught with his penis out? Because the only reason I could imagine a guy like him strangulating himself was because he was masturbating at the same time. But it turns out it wasn't the case. It really was death by romance. This fella had, had a fight with his girlfriend and had too much and decided that would be a good idea, another stupid death. Another stupid death, hey?
No, I'll tell you one, but I don't.
Go,
I don't know
please.
if it should be out there on podcast.
Yeah, no, that's fine. Just don't mention their name if you don't want to.
No, I have to.
Please.
I know a lady at Christmas time, and her fella, he murdered himself because he didn't have a job. He actually hung himself because he didn't have the finances to buy the family Christmas presents.
Yep.
So he hung himself.
Yep.
That's a stupid
death.
Yeah.
What? And then the
Yeah.
kids have to wake up to that and the tragedy.
The kids still ended up having Christmas regardless.
Yeah.
Like, you know
Oh.
what I mean? And they weren't told about what he'd done, and it was all moved out of the way and cleared away. And
Yeah.
like, it was just
Your
so
dad fell over
crazy.
and died on a porcupine. Like,
Yeah,
Oh.
it was like that for years and years.
wow. Yeah. Yeah, because you couldn't relate, because then you would relate that straight back to Christmas
Yeah.
every single year,
Yeah.
wouldn't you? Stupid death.
Yeah.
Stupid death. All right, so that was third, fourth. Next one on the list is locally here at Wyong. We actually have a tattoo artist. He owns a shop upstairs. He's owned it for many, many years. His name's Shannon. He's recently gone to prison because he caused the death of one of his clients. Yeah, now I got piercings off this fella when I was a young 19-year-old bloke. And I'm telling you, this guy, even at the time when I got the piercings done, seemed a little bit off to me. You know, he shouldn't have proved the piercings that I got done as a young fella. You know, I literally had got a piercing in the middle of my forehead, in the middle of my eyebrows, and those across the nose bridge there, but vertical instead of diagonal. Yeah, stupid bloody piercing, but I didn't die from it. Not the story. But this was the same piercing artist. Me as a 19-year-old went in there, suggested that, and he was like, "Yeah, good idea." 3 weeks, you know, in the future, it ended up forcing itself out of my forehead, and now I've literally got a scar in between my eyebrows that I just tell everyone it was a rock fight when I was a kid. All right. Anyway, sorry for the throat in the throat. Just have a sip of my coffee. His fellows continued on his business for years, and this young girl, probably 19-year-old, went in and said, "I want an implant of a snowflake on the back of my hand." And anyways, he's agreed to it. The young girl had it in for 3 days before she started getting hot flushes. She went into him and said, "Look, I'm not feeling right. It doesn't feel right." And he said, "Oh, just come back to me, you know, in another 3 days and we'll see how it is." Meanwhile, in that 3 days, it went septic, went to her heart. She ended up in the emergency ward and actually passed away in the emergency ward from septic poisoning from that implant that she had. And if he suggested that she went to hospital at the time that she went back in to get a checkup from the person that put it in there, she wouldn't have passed away. Yeah, so he caused a stupid death in that fault, and he did go away for a long time. I think he got 25 years for it because of neglect and responsibility for the implant. You know, it's like any operation. By the way, he did not have any qualifications as a tattoo artist, as a piercer, as someone who does body modifications. After all those years, he was still unqualified, just experience. He had an underground name, and he was really working his way up the chain of partying and doing the background tattooing and all that and everything. And then this happened to him. Ended up going to jail for it, and I think all deserves well, because that young girl shouldn't have died from wanting something like an implant. You know, stupid as a snowflake is in your hand, it's not something you should have died from. He should have removed it or sent her straight to emergency, straight up. Stupid death. I hope that next time it's not you. I can't help to think that song every time. Look, guys, this podcast is going to go on because there is more and more and more stupid deaths that we are aware of and we know of. The next one down on my list is actually number 6 to say. And this is when me and a girlfriend were at Pete's Ridge Festival. And this is when the festivals first started happening. And down at Pete's Ridge, they would invite you Dodgem cars to come, little roller coaster rides that would flick up and down as they went around, your Ferris wheel, your little like festival Ferris wheel. And then the carnival, what's the one where the horses are on? What's that one? Carnival friggin' merry-go-round, that one. And they'd have that as well, and they'd have all these rides at the festival as well as all the market stalls and that. Carousel wheel, yeah. And they had all these rides, and people would consume alcohol and then go and get on the rides. And anyways, this young fella, Todd, I believe his name was, it was back in 1997, decided to have a few alcoholic beverages and jump on one of the rides. It was a rocket ride that went around. As it went around, not only did it go up and down, it also sped up as it raised up, and it went down, going around in circles like a rocket flying through space. Pretty cool ride to have at a festival, especially if you had a few. But you know what? Not suggested to try and change your seats halfway through the ride, ladies and gentlemen. Todd thought, it'd be a good idea halfway through the ride, pissed as a nit to try and change seats. And when he's lifted the bar up, it's gone up at the same time, flicked Todd out of the seat and directly under the truck that was holding the ride. He broke his neck on impact to the ground. And when me and Kylie noticed what was going on, there was a crowd just gathering to see Todd under the truck itself. And it was like watching the Wizard of Oz and little old witch's legs sticking out from under the house. It looked exactly the same as that, dead legs sticking out from a truck. And me and Kylie went, "Whoa, what happened?" And then the people were saying, Todd had just been flung up and out of the ride. Some watched it happen and some were just gathering, but they're all in shock and awe. And then obviously the ride keeper gets out of the truck itself where he's operating it, and says, shuts it down, and says, "All right, please go, please go away," type thing. Police, fire, ambulance, everything turns up. And then obviously banned any form of rides from Pete's Ridge festivals from then on. They now only have them at like the horse open day where kids are, and it's a non-alcoholic venue at those times. So I don't blame them. Look, the next story, number 7 on the list, guys, is one that is close to my father's heart. I know it happened to him as a young man. He speaks about it often, and it is quite tragic for him. So I will make it a quick one, but it was where him and his best friend Stephen were playing with a giant cricket rope, the one that goes around the giant cricket field, to say, like that rope that stops the ball from going out. Anyway, they were playing with that just as boys decided to dip it in kerosene like Daredevil, put it in a big circle around them, and then lit it on fire. Fortunately enough, my father made it out and he was able to conceive me and my sisters in that future, but his best friend Stephen was unable to. My sister Stephanie was named after Stephen. And unfortunately the young fella was only 14, 15 at the time, and passed away in my dad's arms, which is a really sad story, I want to kind of tell it quickly because I know Dad's here and it is quite personal to him. But again, it is a stupid death, that was just tragic, playing as a kid, and it should never have happened. Sorry, Dad, to bring it up, mate. I love ya. Yeah, it is, it is on the list. So thanks for guys. The next one I want to talk about is Aaron. I knew him as a teenager growing up. Aaron was always a bit of a sly dickhead. He was always just a giant goof. We loved him, but he was always one to steal a packet of cigarettes at the beach off the girl that was sunbaking there, steal the Mars bar while the friggin' shopkeeper's directly looking at him. Friggin' just a goose to go and do the things that you just go and steal on a neighbour's hose just so we'd have bits for our bong. Like, fucking mate. Aaron, what are you doing, man? What are you doing? Funnily enough, with his teeth, he had a tooth that grew out in the middle of his skull. Like, it was quite strange. Like, but anyway, it's just something to remember about him. With him and his criminal instincts, guys, he ended up going to jail. And in jail, he actually stole cigarettes off one of his cellmates. And that cellmate would not tolerate it and got a shiv and shivved him, and then threw him over the balcony. So poor Aaron got stabbed to death and then thrown over the balcony to be found by guards less than a minute later. And of course, for over cigarettes, yeah. And of course, no culprit was found. Nor was the weapon either, but obviously the statement in the death statement was he was stabbed to death. I got a phone call, 2 years after that happened, and were informed by it, by a fella that I used to go to school with. I said, yeah, thanks for telling me, 2 years late, but understandably, Facebook wasn't around back in those days. Another stupid death. The next one, guys, was one. The guy wasn't directly related to me, but he did live in my neighbourhood when I was living down at the entrance. I lived at the entrance. My daughters regularly come and visit, and we loved going down to our local salt bath. It was right next to a pool. The salt bath had a canteen in it, and the walk down there was beautiful. It'd take us 3 minutes. Walk back there while we were still like dripping wet from beach water. But anyways, this New Year's Eve, me and daughters came to stay. My daughters and I decided we wanted to go down to the beach to swim early in the morning on New Year's Day, after all the fireworks the night before. Beautiful. And anyways, we go down there and we see that the police have cut off the pool. The ambulance are there and they're actually bringing a body up from. And I said, girls, let's direct them. And they're like, oh, no, let's look. So now let's just go. Anyways, I'm walking away and I said, just distracted the girls. Look out there. Look, there's a whale out there, girls, and I'm looking back and I watched them bring the body up from down the pool area, the salt baths, up and into the ambulance. Anyway, they packed the body and I was quite interested in what happened. So I said, once they put the body in and they closed the doors, I said to the girls, all right, okay, let's go for a walk now. Kind of turned around and went back down and was speaking with the police. And what they said happened was a man was drinking last night. He was by himself. Single man, 34, lives in our neighbourhood just up the street. Wanted to go down for a midnight swim. While he was under the intoxication of alcohol, he jumped in the water and hit his head on the bottom of the water because the pools aren't lit and it is very, very dark in that pool. It's like an abyss. Anyways, this fella's jumped in, hit his head, gone unconscious, and unfortunately passed away in the pool, floating to the top, and not to be found by a family shortly before us getting there. So
once again, alcohol was the evil.
Yeah, alcohol was the evil, man. And again, swimming alone at night under the influence, stupid death, man. Could not believe it. That was I think number 8 on our list. This next one, Maximus. When I was a young bloke living down in the Mount Druitt, Max was a family friend of ours. He was quite overweight. He didn't have many friends, but we were family friends with him, riding around in these little 4-wheeler go-karts, to say, pedaling around his house. Not only that, go around for barbecues. He had a really hot older sister and she had a friend and they both had a crush on me, and some good times there. So I wanted to go around as often as I could, not to hang around with Maximus, but to hang around with his older sister, you know what I mean? Anyways, our family friend barbecue, we're all celebrating, all having a good time. We all knew each other quite well. Anyway, this night we all go home and we all, go to sleep. No dramas, no nothing. And then about 3 days later, we hear of a tragic accident where Max and his brother had been playing through the house, playing a game of tip. His brother had actually run through the house where his friend was following him, jumped through a window and then slammed the window closed behind him. And when he slammed the window closed, the window shattered, and below his feet, Max was riding past on one of the go-karts, and a slither of glass has fallen from the window and flipped down directly into Maximus's thigh, hitting a main artery. And unfortunately, Maximus bled out within a few seconds, right there and then. His brother had no idea what to do. By the time his brother went and got help, Maximus has already passed out and going into, cardiac arrest from loss of blood. I imagine it would be cardiac arrest, yeah. Then ambulance turned up and Maximus was pronounced dead when the ambulance finally got there. We all heard about the tragedy at school, all had a day of ceremony and mourning for him. But again, it was a stupid death that did not need to happen.
And a week later, his dad gets killed, or he gets electrocuted with a jib, taking a fucking shed off a truck.
No.
Yeah.
Really?
Mum gets the insurance for it. Luckily, he got insured, but it's a true story. his mum lost his dad and a son both in a week.
So lost a
Her husband and a son.
lost a son, and then lost a husband with an industrial accident a week later.
In a week later, yeah.
Oh my
Exactly
God,
a week later.
that is tragic, isn't it?
Yeah.
Man.
And it was stupid because he was his mind was elsewhere, and
Yep.
he hit wires and bang, he just got confused.
He would have been somewhere else. His son had just passed away. Shouldn't have been at work.
That's what they said. Yeah.
Oh.
He was distracted.
Oh, he would have been.
Yeah.
The next one is about a sinkhole that we actually found as kids in Tregear. It was under a bridge that was a trespass, kind of for when you went to softball and between football. So it was a bridge that went over to St Mary's, from Tregear to St Mary's. Under the bridge was a BMX track. One side was a football field and the other side was a softball field. So it was always a hangout for us kids. And this bushland was awesome, man. Like the creek went from through Tregear before the football grounds. Before there, we used to play from the football grounds all the way through the softball fields. Then it'd go all the way through the Penrith, past our high school, our primary school at the time I was in primary, and later on high school, then further on all the way down to bloody Woot Woot, right? It was one you didn't want to follow because it was just too much. But anyways, at Tregear, on the softball fields, there are these wicked mound hills. If you went down it on a go-kart, you would get up to 70, 80 k's before you ran into a tree down the bottom. There were many cars that were driven onto the paddocks, got up the top of the hill, and went down without people in them just to see what would happen at the bottom. And us kids would come across abandoned cars the next day. But not the point of the story. The point of this story is a sinkhole that we kids come across playing in the BMX track that was under the trespass there, under the bridge, and in the little bushland that was between the softball field and the football field. And we were on there on our BMX bikes. We were having a good old time. And then one of their kids' front wheel went in this little like round sinkhole. And like it was big enough so like the front of his wheel and his handlebars, if you put them sideways, they wouldn't be able to fit down. But if you put it straight down, it could sink straight down and in, but sideways it wouldn't. So if you put your arms around in a big circle, that's kind of how wide this hole was. But the thing with the hole, it wasn't obvious because the overgrowth of the lantana and the weeds that were there, the water weeds, had grown directly over it. And it would only part if someone had landed in it, yeah? And this is what happened with the bike. The kid's riding, trying to get away with his friends, and then went head over turkey inside this, what we thought was just a puddle. And still, until we started sticking sticks down there to see how deep this sinkhole was, all right? And it just didn't end. It just went on. Like, you could bury a kid's bike in there plus some. And we're like, oh, dare to jump in there. None of us kids game enough to jump in there. But anyway, about 6 weeks after we found this sinkhole, a young kid went missing in Tregear, and he was 9 years old, and nobody found the body. It wasn't found until I was 22 years old, many years later, and I only remember the story of him getting found in the sinkhole when this land was cleared because they were putting up some type of plantation or buildings or whatnot. But it was right next to the bridge that we all used to play at the softball fields at Tregear, and they dug up this poor kid's body that had been missing for 12 years, and it was nothing but skeletal remains that were found at the bottom of this sinkhole. And there weren't, on the bones itself, there weren't any details of any evil doings to say. I forgot the name of it, it doesn't come to mind, but it looks like it was purely an accident that maybe he was walking and he fell straight down into this sinkhole and nobody ever found him again. It closed up and the poor kid drowned to death in the middle of a BMX track. So again, unfortunately, another stupid death. Hey, can't believe it.
So many of them.
Yeah. Look, the last one I want to speak of, or the second last, I should say, I've got 3 left, sorry. So we've got Daniel, my cousin. We all love him to death. He's a great guy. He's a really good father, standing up for his family. But in his past, he was a drink driver that unfortunately took 4 lives of his friends. And again, it was their decision to jump in a car with a driver that was heavily intoxicated. And 5 minutes down the street, he lost control, and the driver automatically steers away from themselves when incurring an accident. And on the other side, passenger side, was a telegraph pole, and the front of the car touched the back of the car after the impact of that telegraph pole. The only survivor was Daniel, with the driver's seat directly facing up in the newspaper article that was photo that was taken. That was, I think it was in the Daily Telegraph or the Express Advocate back in that day, the weekend after. Anyways, yeah, so that was close to us. We have forgiven Daniel for his actions. He has done his time, and he's being a great father as a result. And I think, even himself does have remorse, because they weren't only my friends, they were his friends in that car as well. One in particular of mine was Wado, who was already suffering from a disability from eating magic mushrooms, so stupid deaths, far out. The next one was an older fella, Spuddy. Stupid deaths, man. This guy drank himself to death. Through alcoholism. Nice guy, removalist for most of his life.
Got between 2 pit bulls before he died.
Yeah, got between 2 pit bulls, was mauled by 2 dogs. He had needed stitches, hospitalisation, and that was part of his death, the infections. Because he went into hospital, couldn't drink alcohol, the shock to his system as well as the repair to the body couldn't handle it, and within a month I think he passed away or something ridiculous like that. But the guy was already at a state where he was pissing the bed every single night and maybe every second night shitting it. Total bodily function breakdown. Like, this was 10, 15 years ago when I was allowed to stay there, because Spuddy was a nice guy. He would come and let people like me who were struggling in life come and stay for a couple of months, pay rent, and that's how he got the name Uncle Spud. He wasn't related to me. He wasn't directly related to Peter either, was he? No, but he was Uncle Spud, he was just that kind of guy. And he would never let anyone too stupid stay there, because everyone else would stick up for him if he did. Like my dad ended up kicking one of the gronks out, that were just using him. Another story, because they didn't die. Frank didn't die from me punching him up. No, don't know. He wasn't there. Might be bled to death from his own stupidness. But anyway, another story. Poor Uncle Spud ended up passing away from alcoholism, mauled by dogs, and just did not recover from the shock of lack of alcohol and infections to the system, unfortunately. The last one that I can kind of come to mind was the father of a school friend. No, he wasn't really a friend, but it was a kid that we went to school with. Now, this kid decided it would be a good idea to stick some gas cans into the fire while his dad was cooking a barbecue. The barbecue then exploded. Not only did the barbecue explode, so the gas cans that were in it and whatever flammables were around went up instantly. The father was burnt dramatically. Didn't survive the incident. I think not even the night. The child himself was burnt 99% to his body, and almost didn't survive. When he started attending school again, he had to wear a full bodysuit over his body, and then cream on the part of his face that was showing. And for some reason, the kid thought it was a good idea to open up a drain to go and fetch the handball or whatever was down there. I can't even remember. I'd say handball. I can't really remember what it was. But as he's put his hand in to go reach down and get it, the drain comes slamming closed and cut off 4 of his fingers. Yeah, dead set. Yeah, cut off 4 of his fingers. Ended up going to hospital. We didn't see him at school again after that incident. But we all know his father did pass away from something that he'd done, because that was in the police report itself. Again, stupid deaths, what do you do?
That was ridiculous.
Yeah, it really was. That's all that really comes to my mind. Thank you guys so much for listening
Another one
to...
that comes to mind
Yeah, Dad, listening.
He said fucking idiot actor fucking Alec Baldwin fucking shooting that lady on the set, mate. That's
Oh
stupid
no,
death.
that's not directly related.
But I'm still saying that's one of the most stupid
Look,
deaths ever.
the only other
And
one.
how does he get away with that shit?
Yeah, the only other one that really does come to mind is a tragic and sad one. I don't really want on it, but I'll tell you guys. Is my brother-in-law James, great guy, was 23 years old. He went to work and he was working hard for an hour and a half. He was proud to be in a new job that he just got, and the fellow had just got his adrenaline up, started a hard sweat, and then passed out and fell over flat face onto the floor from a cardiac arrest. And his workmates didn't know what was going on, so they all stood around in awe before they went and got help. By the time they got help and the ambulance arrived and defibrillator was attached, young James unfortunately passed away. And it's very tragic and it's a very sad one. And I'd call that a stupid death because the workplace didn't assist immediately. And when they done the autopsy, it was found that it was a previous heart condition that he'd suffered his whole life, but nobody had ever spotted it, even though he'd gone for checkups before in the past as well. Luckily, it was spotted because his young son, and his widow, the young son did have the same condition. It was hereditary, yeah. So they've managed to get that under wraps, have him the right diet and prevent any further damage or outcome from that condition itself. So it was spotted. That was probably the positive that came from that stupid death, where it was just stupid in the way that a young life like that shouldn't have been taken.
Should have been diagnosed better.
Should have really been. Yeah. Stupid death. I hope that next time it's not you. Yeah. All right, guys. Well, that's all I have. That was a really long podcast. I appreciate it. Hey, there's a lot more that will probably come to mind. So we'll probably do an episode 2 on stupid deaths. I appreciate it. Please like, subscribe. Do whatever you kids do these days. Thank you. Nice.